It is indeed a privilege and a pleasure to bring you all together for this afternoon's event. An event that is so meaningful, powerful, and impactful. An event that we hope we can make a small change in the lives of those women who struggle. Generations of women have struggled to escape violence and to be respected. And we, the Ripple Effect, firmly believe that we have a strong role to play in advocating for this.
Welcome to our event. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Smita Chandra. I'm the chair of this event. And it just makes me so happy to see a full house. Let's have a round of applause for everyone.
In her pursuit for human rights, Raheel is accredited with the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva and the UN in New York. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Raheel Raza.
We have a beautiful saying that if you educate a boy, you educate an individual, and that's fantastic. But when you educate a girl, you educate a family, you educate a tribe, you educate a village, you educate a nation, and then you educate the world. Keeping in mind the cultural norms of the people within certain geographical areas is very important. Because the real change has to come from within the communities. We can't impose our own style of feminism or democracy on people who have never experienced it before.
He's been doing a lot of support and programs in the community right here in the South Asian community and insists on the services to be culturally appropriate. Amidst all your applause, I welcome Baldev Muttaji.
And if you have girls, ask them to become militant warriors. We don't need Sitas in this world. We don't need them. We need warriors. We need, when somebody does injustice to them, that they have the courage to stand up and look the oppressor in the eye and say, I'm not gonna take it. That's the kind of women we need. The way that we raise boys in our families is that we are giving them enhanced entitlement. And with that enhanced entitlement, we are developing their psyche as if somehow they rule the world. They rule not only their families, they rule their parents, but eventually that they are the masters of their women. And unless we are going to change this whole sense of entitlement piece for the boys in our families, the violence against women in the South Asian communities will continue. Please make sure that if you have boys, raise them differently.
The stories of these women are not globally known, but they should be, because the work that they do is against all odds. It's against the forces of patriarchy, of poverty, of violence, human trafficking, and the work that they do is phenomenal. Because it highlights all the challenges that millions of devalued women and girls face in South Asia. In a society where women are all often considered expendable and worthless, these are inspirations for us, because from this we understand that if they can do it, certainly there is hope.
How do we address the issue of violence within the South Asian community, at the same time acknowledging that it's not unique to the South Asian community?
What are your thoughts instead about the stigma around mental health in the South Asian community and the direct connection between mental health and addiction?
Do you have any connection with the authorities that could help to stop the abuse at home?
and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Ripple Effect Wellness Organization's Empowering Women Embracing Hope webinar, which has been possible due to the generous support from IG Wealth Management. I am Tina Walia, an executive committee member, and I'm really excited to host this webinar for you today. Now, before we get started, the back-end IG tech team is going to walk us through a few housekeeping rules. Over to Leanne Nullmeyer.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. You can see on the slide we have some tips to help make sure that you have the best experience possible. You should right now be able to see Tina in the video screen, and you should be able to see the slides and hear us clearly. If you cannot, one thing that you can try is refreshing your browser and making sure that you're joining us from an up-to-date browser. We find that the Chrome browser works best with this technology that we're using. Now, for some of you, you may need to look in your browser bar over to the right-hand side for a little puzzle piece to enable Flash. That will help you see the video view clearly. You'll want to make sure that your volume is turned up. And if you have any other questions, just use the Q&A chat box. We're here to help you behind the scenes. Over to you, Tina.
Thank you, Leanne. This evening, we will be hearing from two compelling speakers about financial stability and emotional resilience. And not to forget, we have exciting raffle prizes for you all. $50 Amazon e-cards, 10 of them up for grabs. In order to be eligible, you have to be connected right till the end of the webinar. Now, without further ado, let's get started. We begin with the Canadian National Anthem, sung by Lorraine Gonzalez, a TREWO team member. Thank you, Lorraine. That was just beautiful. The Ripple Effect Wellness Organization, also known as TREWO, is a registered Canadian charity since 2009. Our mission is to create healthy communities through knowledge sharing online, as well as via talks, seminars, workshops, and other events. The Ripple Effect Wellness Organization supports a number of local and international organizations working in the field of healthcare through annual fundraisings, such as the gala and the golf tournament. We strongly believe that knowledge is the best preventative medicine one can have. The Ripple Effect Wellness Organization was founded by Dr. Sudhi Devanesan and Mr. Ravi Juneja. Dr. Sudhi Devanesan is the recipient of Order of Canada, an associate professor at University of Toronto, and a former chief of family and community medicine at St. Michael's Hospital. Mr. Ravi Juneja, a chartered accountant, has been serving the community for the last 30 years. His financial expertise has been a valuable asset in running the organization. Our advisory panel includes leading medical practitioners, entrepreneurs, business owners, academia, and authors. It is my absolute honor to introduce the president and founder of the Ripple Effect Wellness Organization, Dr. Sudhi Devanesan.
Thank you, Tina, for that introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this wonderful evening's event. A lot of hard work has been put into it, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. The Ripple Effect Wellness Organization has been established almost 12 years ago. And in these 12 years, we've accomplished a lot, too many to name at this moment. However, I just want to mention the 3 areas that we emphasize in our community engagement: seniors and elder care, women and youth mental health. And a lot of work has been put into it despite the current pandemic. And I'm very proud of our team. I'm very happy that this event is going to be one of the best that has come up right throughout Canada and across the border and perhaps around the world. So welcome and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sudhi. Thank you. Before we commence the presentations this evening, I would like to remind the audience to submit their questions using the Q&A chat box at the bottom of the screens for our speakers. The Q&A session will be held after the second presentation. Our first speaker, Marissa Teeter, a Senior Vice President, Financial Services with IG Wealth Management, has over 15 years of experience in business development, wealth management, and marketing. Marissa is deeply involved in local community as well as international causes. She will educate us about the important connection between financial health and mental well-being and provide strategies to increase our personal financial confidence. It is my pleasure to introduce Marissa Teeter.
Thank you so much, Tina, and thank you so much to everyone for having me here this evening. Tina, can you just smile if you can hear me okay? Okay, wonderful. Just making sure. I am so incredibly honored and thrilled to be participating in this wildly unique event that you are hosting this evening. I do want to start off by saying that in addition to my role as Senior Vice President with IG, I'm also a mom of 2 young children who are being put to bed right now upstairs. So if you hear noise, everybody, I do apologize in advance. I'm sure as many of you are taking time out this evening to take part in such an important event. This is something that is certainly very near and dear to me. As Tina alluded, any opportunity that I have to participate in community events, especially those that empower and really lift up women, is something that I am absolutely thrilled to take part in. I will say that I'm not here this evening to share financial advice with you. As you can imagine, financial advice is so incredibly personal and unique to each person's situation. And I'm sure you are all wonderfully unique. And so giving advice would just not be possible. However, I know one thing for sure that you all have in common is that you are remarkable individuals looking to be better and do better because you have taken time out on this lovely Wednesday evening to learn more, to empower yourselves. And I have to say, the lovely woman in the video clip at the beginning, whose name I didn't catch, took the words right out of my mouth. You know, there is that saying that when you educate and empower a woman, you truly educate and empower a village, a community, a nation, and the entire world. So I know tonight that with the information that you are going to receive and hear tonight, I have no doubt that the impact of this will really go beyond just yourself or whoever is partaking in this experience with you tonight. I have no doubt that this will impact so many beyond our attendees here tonight. As it was mentioned, I am, sorry, I'm just going to advance my slides here. My apologies. Always opportunities for technical difficulties on these webinars. All right, wonderful. My apologies for that. As was mentioned, I am the Senior Vice President at IG Wealth Management, and although tonight is certainly not about pushing or promoting IG Wealth, I do want to say that I chose a career with this organization because they are so incredibly focused on community. It is a very large organization that services and caters to over 1 million Canadians, really looking out for their financial wellness and well-being. One of IG's focuses and truly one of their greatest values and mandates is around this idea of empowering your tomorrow. And IG's Empower Your Tomorrow program is everything we just mentioned about uplifting communities, one individual at a time. Inspiring the financial confidence of Canadians is so critically important to our organization because businesses thrive in strong communities. And strong communities are built on an absolute general sense of well-being and confidence, and financial confidence is such a critical piece of that. IG's commitment to community, to philanthropy, to charity, we support hundreds of charities and organizations across this country, all built around this idea of empowering communities by truly improving financial literacy and financial confidence, because there's so much evidence that these two really fuel strong societies and strong communities. I want to share some facts and stats with all of you today. I am sure that there are many remarkable women on this call today, and I'm sure there's some brave men, some smart men who decided to join and hear the wonderful message that we are sharing this evening, and I commend all of you for coming together. There are some very strong statistics and trends as it relates to women and finances. Currently, 67%, of care provided to other adults is done by women. In fact, women are 4 times more likely to have their careers interrupted to care for other individuals, be it children during the childbearing years, or friends who are ill, or family members, parents. This is very common for women to press pause on their careers, on their incomes, on their livelihoods to care for other individuals. And obviously that would put a financial strain, but also a wellness, a mental and physical strain on individuals who are caring for others. And many of you who have gone through this are certainly aware. 77% of women see money in terms of what it can do for their families. Again, taking us back to that comment about women uplifting their communities. You enrich a woman, you educate her, so too shall that happen to the community. So, this idea that women see money as an opportunity to really uplift others. However, 60% of women aged 45 to 54 do not have a personal financial plan. And this does not mean they're not investing. This is not about having a financial portfolio. This is about having a real plan based in your values, in your personal situation, in your goals, something that really will provide you a roadmap to true financial well-being. The stats still show that currently women on average are making only 80 cents on the dollar to every man, a wage gap that we continue to close in on, which I think is absolutely very impressive. However, in these COVID times, also a lot of signs that all the work we've been doing over the past few decades was likely pushed back significantly because a lot of women had to take time out to care for friends, family, their children during these COVID times. 90% of women will become the sole financial decision makers in their lifetime due to divorce, due to the rates of men passing away before women, women running sole proprietary businesses. I mean, 90% of women will be in a situation to be the sole decision maker as it relates to their financial situation. And this last one, which may or may not surprise some of you, but by 2026, which is not that far away, women will control over 50% of the wealth in this country for many of contributing factors. All of this to say that as women, it is more critical now than ever before to have financial confidence, to have a financial understanding, and to find a comfort with financial well-being because it is so incredibly impactful on yourself, but also on the people around you. My goal today is, if anything, is to understand that your financial well-being and your physical and your mental well-being, your overall health, are so interconnected. I found some amazing research studies, one of them specifically from PricewaterhouseCoopers, that shows money causes the most stress in the lives of almost 60% of employees. It was the top choice for a life stressor for all generations, ahead of health issues, job, relationship, and 30% of employees say that their health was impacted by their financial worries. Above and beyond that, roughly 40% of individuals said they would give up all social media, they would forever cut out carbohydrates, sugar, and alcohol if they never had to manage their personal finances again. Almost equating managing financial well-being to something so traumatic and so painful. But notice I didn't say that these individuals felt anxiety or stress or their health was impacted because they didn't have enough money, because they had too little money. In fact, it has nothing to do with the amount of money you have. It has to do with the comfort level, your understanding, your education, how empowered you feel, your financial confidence. But again, that financial health is so interconnected to your well-being. And in fact, there is a book called Well-Being, the 5 Essential Elements, which truly breaks down our human nature, our essential elements to our overall well-being as humans. And those 5 elements are here: career well-being, which for some individuals who perhaps aren't working outside the home, your purpose within the home and your role that you play at home, or your role that you play in the community through volunteerism. Social well-being, your interconnectedness to people around you. Financial well-being at number 3, how effectively you manage your economic life. Not how much money you have or don't have, but how effectively you manage it and how in control you are of your financial situation. And then your physical well-being, which is having good health and enough energy to get things done. And then finally, your community well-being. However, the single biggest threat to our own well-being tends to be ourselves. And I say that because all of these items are certainly interconnected. It would be very hard to pick one over the other because it is so critical to us as human creatures to have such a synergy and a well-balanced coming together of all these elements. But note that financial well-being is just as critical to physical well-being when it comes to your overall well-being. And when you step back and think about that, the number 1 cause of divorces in our country is related to financial incompatibility. And essentially what that means is that a lot of people don't agree on your financial philosophies, how money should be spent, is it being saved properly, or just the everyday stress of financial competency, financial literacy, one partner perhaps having all the awareness and understanding of the finances and the other partner being completely in the dark on the finances, leading to a lot of anxiety and concern. And I do want to say that this, as I mentioned, is not about how much money you have. It's not about how much money you save, but it's really having an understanding. So I put here, it's about assurances. It's about a comfort level with financial well-being, with finances. It's not about assets. It's not about how much you have. It's about confidence, not about the cash. Your financial literacy and your financial confidence are directly connected to your physical and mental wellness. Not understanding how your finances will protect you, or perhaps not understanding how your financial situation, how you can get from point A to B as it relates to your goals, your life goals, how you can provide yourself with peace of mind. These are items that are so essential to your overall mental well-being. Life, as we all know, is full of unexpected moments. And I'm sure over the past few months, we can all attest that we have endured such an unusual, such an uncertain time, which for many has really and truly impacted their financial well-being. And perhaps it was more than just the money in their bank account, but certainly affecting perhaps where that next dollar was going to come from. If you had income interruption in your job, or if you run a small business, whatever that may be in terms of your own personal situation, there was certainly the question of, am I financially capable of navigating this? Do I have the financial confidence to navigate this? There are the realities and the opportunities of life that come at us all the time, especially as women. We're living longer. We have greater retirement needs. We want to have fun. We want to travel. We want to live our lives. There's a good chance we'll be caring for friends or family members or pets or grandchildren, having dependents that rely on us. Healthcare costs, because we're living longer, the cost of living is higher. Retirement homes, assisted living costs. These are all things that are realities in our day and age. And I have to say, caring for my grandparents and seeing the cost related just to their everyday well-being, it's not something most people prepare for. A lot of people prepare for death with life insurance and estate planning. But what about for living? What about for living with illness or living and aging gracefully? There's also the element of caregiving. As I mentioned, so many of you and so many of us will be the individuals who care for our parents, our loved ones, our friends, our neighbors, grandchildren, children. And this certainly will have an impact. And we saw this during COVID. As I mentioned earlier, many women's careers, their income, their if it be their professional lives were interrupted to stay at home and care for their children, which certainly was unexpected for a lot of individuals. And obviously the increasing and the growing share of wealth, which I mentioned, women's career success does not always mean greater financial security. There's inheritances, wealth transfers, all these things that are happening around us that we need to have a certain understanding in order to plan and prepare for these moments. The same as we would for our health and our well-being, have a plan for our wellness. If a doctor were to write us a prescription or a wellness strategy to improve on an illness or an ailment, so too do we want to ensure that we are prepared for life's possibilities and life's realities. And a lot of that comes from having a plan. And at IG Wealth, I have to say that financial planning is what we do. And this is not about, monitoring the returns on an investment portfolio. This is about making sure that you have the confidence to live everyday life, knowing that should something occur that is unexpected, that you have a plan to navigate this. Also to ensure that you're living your best life to the fullest, and that you have a plan, a financial plan that supports that, as to not occupy space in your mind and your body with concern and anxiety about living your best life and understanding where money is coming from, how it works, how your taxes work, expenses, what's coming in, what's going out, and the uncertainty related to financial well-being. We talk a lot at IG about a synchronized, holistic financial plan. And what I mean by that is a personalized plan that is designed for you. My plan would be different than your plan and be different than your neighbor's plan and then the other individuals on this call, because we all have different values and goals. The way that I see myself living my best life is likely different than you see yourself living your best life. But there are key elements to consider. And when you're working on a financial plan, the idea is to solve for problems that perhaps don't exist yet. The job of a planner is to ensure that in those moments of uncertainty, they can provide that certainty, further fueling, your emotional comfort and mental well-being around financial uncertainties. Not knowing and the anxiety of not understanding can fuel a lot of physical and mental challenges as it comes to your overall wellness. So creating a plan that looks at all the different dimensions of financial well-being, which is planning for major expenditures. If you're a business owner, making sure you can successfully manage your business and transition your business when that moment comes. Preparing for the unexpected, that rainy day fund, as we always refer to, but also managing the day-to-day. Perhaps you want to share with, create an estate plan, share with those who you love, perhaps after you pass, and what that looks like. And obviously optimizing retirement which is something that we all strive to do. I think it's important to look at financial well-being, as I mentioned earlier, as a critical part of your overall well-being. If you were to be diagnosed with a terrible illness tomorrow, I have no doubt that all of you would take the time to educate yourself, to understand what you can do. I'm sure that the people around you who care about you would come together with you to provide education and knowledge and empowerment so that everybody was engaged in your well-being. This is true for your financial well-being as well. You need to empower yourself and educate yourself to give yourself that peace of mind so you can sleep well at night knowing that you have a plan and that you have support. Number one, educate yourself. You can find a financial planner to help guide you, or I would recommend doing both. There are so many resources out there on the internet. There are amazing books. One of my favorite books, just as a basic all-time favorite, would be Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I say that, and it doesn't sound like it would be the most appealing book for women. However, the fundamentals of that book are very powerful. Anything that you can do to educate yourself, when you educate yourself, you empower yourself and you further engage yourself in the process of working towards that true financial confidence that will give you that peace of mind. Create a plan that reflects you. What do you want? What do you need? As I mentioned, all of our plans are different. We don't all want the same things. We certainly don't all need the same things. But it's important to understand where you're going, what you're working towards. And all the data and research shows that when you write things down and you create a plan and you work towards it, your likelihood of achieving that grows tenfold. You want to monitor your plan the way you monitor your health. You need regular checkups. During COVID and post-COVID, many of our clients reached out to say, is my plan still valid? Or things have changed. Perhaps they got laid off or they decided to retire early. Perhaps they lost a loved one. Perhaps a loved one is ill. Perhaps they decided to change careers or close their business or open a business. If the plan changes, if life changes, so too does the plan. Your plan needs to always adjust. If you were to create a physical wellness plan that involved a certain diet and exercise regime, that involved, let's say, running or walking every day, and you broke your foot, your plan would have to change. You'd have to adjust to life's realities. You also want to acknowledge the connection between financial health and mental well-being. I say this because there are times and moments in life where we have the opportunity to heal ourselves by addressing perhaps our financial situation, perhaps bringing clarity to something related to financial wellness or our economic wellness that is perhaps causing us physical or mental stress. It is so important to acknowledge that connection and to have, like I said, not necessarily amassed a certain amount of money or need to make a certain amount of money, but to understand money, to have confidence and clarity around your financial situation. And then spread the word and spread the wealth. The more people you can share this information with and educate on this idea of this connectedness between financial and overall well-being, this is such a critical piece to ensuring that we build communities, that everyone around us thrives and survives through this. I want to thank all of you for having me here today. I am so grateful to be here, so thrilled with all the wonderful work that this incredible organization is doing, and encourage all of you to empower yourself through education, engage yourself in your own financial well-being, and let your financial confidence lead you to overall physical, mental well-being. Thank you so much for having me this evening.
That was a very informative presentation, and I'm really hopeful that our audience took away new strategies to improve their personal financial stability. Thank you so much, Marissa. It was a pleasure. A reminder to our audience about the upcoming raffle. Again, 10 $50 Amazon e-gift cards up for grabs right at the end of the webinar, so stay tuned. Our next speaker, Dr. Margaret Kamalini Kumar, has over 40 years of teaching experience in the healthcare field and was the Director of Clinical and Professional Development at Mercy Medical Center in Clinton, Iowa. She has been a presenter at numerous international workshops in the areas of spiritual care, faith community nursing, cultural diversity, leadership development, and much more. Dr. Kumar today will educate us about emotional resilience, a very, very important subject, especially in these challenging times. A very warm welcome to Dr. Margaret Kamalini Kumar.
Thank you very much, Tina, for that nice introduction. And like Marissa, I'm also deeply honored that I was invited to speak tonight by this very dedicated and dynamic organizing committee that you have. And on a personal note, I just want to wish Asha and Sudhi Devanesan a very happy anniversary today. And to tell you that we go way back, we met each other when we were teenage college students. And so we've kept this friendship going so long. And it is my joy and pleasure to be able to be involved in this event tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit about personally how one can really be resilient in times like this. And I will share with you mainly my history of being resilient. A long time ago, I read an account of a traveler that was traveling through the jungles of Africa on an expedition. And he had hired some tribal people to help carry several of his loads to his destination. And on the very first day, these people marched rapidly and they went very far, and the traveler had high hopes of a speedy journey and reaching his destination quickly. But on the second day, a strange thing happened. The man just sat quietly and he was puzzled, and he said, "What are you doing?" And they told him, "The first day we went too far and too fast, and now we have to wait for our souls to catch up with our bodies." Now, this hectic and frantic pace of life that we live does for us what that journey did that first day for those travelers. The only thing is they knew how to restore their life's balance by waiting for their souls to catch up with their bodies. And I hope in the next few minutes, I will give you a little glimpse as to how to do this in our lives, because to me, that is what resilience is all about, having our souls and our bodies walking in tandem with each other. And so I want to share with you several concepts that have helped me in my journey towards resilience. Have you ever wondered what it is that makes some people bounce back quickly after an adversity than others? Or why hundreds of people facing the same problems, the same adversities, they wind up on drastically different paths in their lives? You know, resilience has taken on many meanings throughout history, but scientists and researchers who have studied it say it's very helpful to think of resilience as an emotional muscle that one can grow and develop, because it is important for living, and it seems fairly obvious to us. But what exactly is resilience? Is it only something that some fortunate people have and others don't? It's not a trait we are born with, but it is thoughts and actions and behaviors that any of us can learn. And I think ultimately it's about navigating the challenging times in our lives and using strategies to adapt and pivot during those challenging times, during those periods of uncertainty. But mostly it's about providing inspiration to ourselves first and then to others around us to actually overcome problems, to be personally strengthened by them, and to forge a path forwards. You know, resilience doesn't make problems go away, resilience doesn't solve problems, but it certainly helps us to adapt, to cope, and also to, stay on our feet. Because there's not a single one of us here listening tonight that hasn't gone through bad times, tough times, and even devastating times in our lives. So this concept of resilience, as you see on this Wordle slide, has a lot of entities to it. And it has been studied since the early 70s. And in the United States specifically, by a very impactful and contemporary social researcher named Dr. Brene Brown. I'm sure many of you have read her books or seen her on TED Talks or attended some of her lectures. She speaks and writes extensively on this topic, and I highly recommend that you get into some of her readings. In one of her books, The Gifts of Imperfection, she talks about resilience as being the ability to overcome adversity, and she lists several of what she calls protective factors that help us become resilient. And these include having good problem-solving skills, being able to seek help when we need it, believing in our own ability to cope, and most importantly, having connections and the support of people, of friends, neighbors, and family. To this list, Dr. Brene Brown also adds the concept of spirituality, compassion, courage, and vulnerability, which is the ability to embrace your pain and acknowledge that you go through tough times. And she thinks that compassion and the ability to actually appreciate another person's vulnerability is a key element in living what she calls a very meaningful and wholehearted life. Now, these abilities may be more natural for some people, but they certainly can be learned and cultivated by the rest of us. There are many definitions of resilience, but my favorite one, the one that I always go to, is resilience is the self-righting tendencies of a person, both the capacity to be bent without breaking, like you see in this wonderful slide here, the wind does not break a tree that bends. So once you're bent, the ability to also spring back. Now, you hear the word bounce back a lot in relation to resilience. And I personally feel that none of us can actually bounce back to the same spot we were before an adversity or a problem happened. But we can get to a place where we can live a meaningful and integrated and whole life while we gradually adjust to what this new phrase now, the new normal. How do we get back and live in the new normal? So I have to tell you that 5 years ago, my dear husband had a severe reaction to a drug which killed him. And as he lay dying, I watched him go through this process. And it was terrifying, it was sad, it was hard. But as he lay there, the person that came to my mind often, and even as he took his last breath, the person I thought about was my mother. She was one of the most resilient people I have ever met. My father died, and my mother lived for 26 years after that, a contented, quiet, fulfilled life. And it was amazing that when my husband died, what I actually said aloud was, if my mother can do this, I can do this. And then it dawned on me, we can be that kind of person that other people are watching. It dawned on me that my children are watching me, that others of my friends and family are watching me. And if my mother could have been so helpful to me at this hard time, then that's what I wanted to be for people around me. So in this short talk, I want to share with you 3 major concepts that helped me to become a resilient person. In the 1996 Olympics, there was a sportscaster named Charlie Jones, and his task was to interview all the Olympic rowers. So he went from country to country, talking to them and asking them a lot of questions, like what did they know about their opponents? What were the strengths and weaknesses of their opponents? What were they going to do if something went wrong? What about the weather? Would the weather affect their chances of winning the Olympics? And he was surprised that every single one of them said, in response to his questions, that is outside my boat. And by refusing to focus on anything beyond their control, these Olympian rowers were so focused, and they brought to bear all their resources on things that were within their own control. You know, their physical well-being, their mental maps, their training. And that is what allowed them to be Olympians and to be winners. And so that brings me to my first topic of control. You know, if truth be told, all of us are secret or maybe even overt control freaks. We really like to have everything in control. And the truth of the matter is that there is so little under our control. Many of you might have heard of Stephen Covey, who was a brilliant educator and businessman, and he wrote a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And when I read his concept of us living within 3 circles of our lives, something resonated with me, and this became my anchor, really. You know, when you think of our circle of control, this inner circle, which is so small, we have such little control. We have control over maybe what we allow into our lives, our behavior, what we think, what we don't think, what we say or don't say, and even sometimes we don't have control over that. Our circle of control is so small. Our circle of concern, or our circle of no control, is as big as this entire universe. You know, what happens in the world, the natural disasters, the pandemic, the fires that are raging through our states right now, what other people say or think or do, even our spouses or toddlers, we don't have control over them. And yet we spend an inordinate amount of time and energy and money and resources trying to control the things we can't. What an absolute waste of time and life. And yet we do this almost intuitively, wanting to control things that we can't. Resilient people, on the other hand, they spend all their time on this third circle, the circle of influence. You know, we're always influencing someone, always. For the positive or the negative, we're always influencing people. People are watching our lives, and maybe the way we live could make a world of difference to them. In my own life, I realized that if I can focus on what's in my own boat and what I can control, it increased my effectiveness, and it also greatly decreased my level of stress. Another major concept that helped me in my journey towards resilience is this whole, before I go into that, I must mention this. If our circle of resilience is very huge, circle of influence is very big, our circle of concern gets smaller and smaller. If our circle of concern is very big, then our circle of influence is very small, as the slide shows. So as a resilient person, if you focus on working on what impact you can have on others, how can you influence others, then things that you cannot control don't bother you. Things that you can control don't bother you. That's a huge, major concept to think about. The second one is this whole idea of being an emotionally intelligent person. Now, I'm sure you've heard this concept before also, and it slides off the tongue very easily, but it's a very difficult thing to do because most of us are highly impressed with people with high IQs, and we like to be people with high IQs. But you know, through my life, I've learned I'd rather be a person with a high EQ, an emotional quotient, than I would with a high IQ. Emotionally intelligent people have certain traits. They are totally aware of themselves. They know what their moods are, their feelings, their behaviors, their attitudes. They know that. They are aware. And not only do they know that, but they are able to control it or manage it so that they don't go off the deep end when something happens. And when you're able to know who you are and how you behave, then you are able to actually influence other people, like being in that circle of influence. You're able to manage relationships with other people. You don't have a sense of elitism or judgmentalism or looking down on others who think differently from you. You actually embrace different people. You're socially aware of what's going on around you. You understand how your tone of voice affects somebody else, how your body language speaks to someone else. This is emotional intelligence. And people who are resilient are highly emotionally intelligent. And this is something I learned, and this is something I try to practice, because the hallmarks of emotionally intelligent people are that they can rapidly adjust to changing conditions. They can deal with difficult people calmly and thoughtfully. They have a very positive attitude in their lives. They're able to express their needs in a very articulate way. They're also able to help other people to express their needs. But mostly, and the most important thing is, they are continuously learning how to improve themselves. They never feel like they've reached their goal, but they can always become better at it. So this is a huge concept in resilience, is to be emotionally intelligent. So how does all this foster hope in us? You know, for me, hope and resilience go hand in hand. You cannot be a resilient person if you're not hopeful. And you cannot be hopeful if you're not resilient. Because resilient people are those who are transformed by their adversities. They don't let their adversities change them. They change the adversity. And they not only survive, but they thrive. They not only move, but they move forward, and they move in a positive way forward. And it's about looking at, you know, life, the hard times in our lives, and appreciating how we pushed through. So this hope that I'm talking about is not a wishy-washy hope. It's not, I hope something happens, or I hope something doesn't happen. It's actually a confident expectation of something that is sure in our lives and that it will happen. So how do you tie all this together to make a hopeful existence? Now, there are hundreds of books and journal articles and information on the internet, or different things to tell you, information telling us what we need to do to become resilient. I'm always struck by the lists of things we're told to do. You know, I would rather focus on how I need to be rather than what I need to do. We're, after all, as we've heard, human beings, not human doings. And so we need to actually understand how to bypass all those lists of doing and actually start being. So for me, it is focusing on becoming healthy in body, mind, and spirit. Now, as human beings from all over the world, we all have the exact same physical needs. We all have the same need for air, water, food, sleep, and we all know how to meet those needs. We do pretty well in that. We all have the same mental or emotional needs, the needs for belonging, the needs for community, the needs for esteem, for recognition, for being part of a group. All these things are definitely met culturally in different cultures, but we know how to meet those needs. But when it comes to this whole idea of spiritual needs, we actually are unsure and sometimes unaware and sometimes totally ignore or neglect this very important area of our lives. You know, the term spirituality defies universal definitions, but there is no doubt that spirituality leads to a resilience that is real and lasting. So here is my take. The keys to becoming hopeful and resilient is to understand that every human being has these 4 deep spiritual needs. The first one is, what is the meaning and purpose of my life? Why do I exist? Why do I go through all these experiences that I'm having? This is a deep spiritual need. It's not emotional. It's not physical. People want answers to why questions, and that's spiritual. The second deep need we have is to be loved and to love others conditionally. This is a need that says, love me because I exist and for no other reason, not because I'm beautiful or handsome or rich or whatever, but just the fact that I'm a human being of worth and value. This kind of love is not a romantic, mushy, sentimental kind of love. This is a self-giving, sacrificial love that is extended to any and everybody, regardless of how alike they are to you or how different they are to you. It is a love that doesn't demand repayment. It is a love that loves even those who are unlovable. And it's a love that gives even when you are rejected. This kind of love is a decision, not a feeling. And that is a deep, deep spiritual need we all have. The third one is to forgive and be forgiven. Why? Because we all live in relationships. The reason we stay in our families and the reason we stay in our community circles is not because everyone there is perfect, but because we're able to forgive when things go wrong and we're able to forgive when conflict occurs. One of the best definitions of marriage that I've heard is marriage is the union between 2 forgivers. Think about it. If you couldn't forgive your spouse, your marriage would not last. That's what keeps the glue that keeps it held together. And you know, forgiveness, someone said, is a very strange medicine. The more you give it to others, the more your own heart gets healed. The more you withhold it from others, the more bondage and misery you are in. It is a deep need. And the final one is to have hope. Hope through all of life's experiences, hope for this life and hope for the next. And when our foundation is sure, no storm will cause our lives to collapse or make us lose hope. It is amazing to me as I see the fires rage through the Western coast of people who are saying, we will make it, we have hope, our lives are saved, we'll make it. That's what will carry them through. You know, the rains of adversity, the winds of pressure, the floods of misery, illness, death, all that will occur. We may lose our security, we may lose our sanity, but if our hope prevails, we will endure. And so I just want to really emphasize these 4 things: how to be, how to live meaningfully, how to love others, how to forgive others, and how to live with hope. And as a Christian, I will say, a follower of Jesus Christ, he does this for me. He gives me meaning and purpose. He forgives me. I can forgive others. He loves me in order to love others, and he gives me hope. So I implore you, whatever your spirituality, whatever your belief system, whatever philosophy you subscribe to, don't ignore the fact that these questions in your life must be answered. And so if you can get this put together, your body, mind, and spirit, and have each one of them paid attention to and be healthy in each one of these areas, you will live a life of lasting meaning and resilience. And so in closing, I just want to leave you with this blessing. May you have enough happiness to make you sweet, enough trials to make you strong. May you have enough sorrow to keep you human, and may you have enough hope to keep you happy. Thank you so much for allowing me to share these few thoughts with you, and I hope you will explore them further and think about them. Thank you.
That was just amazing. Thank you, Dr. Kumar, for a thought-provoking presentation. Our audience seems to have loved it, as I could see a number of questions coming through from them. Moving on to the question and answer part of the webinar, being supported in the background by Leanne Nullmeyer of IG Wealth Management. Over to you, Leanne.
Thank you, Tina, and thank you to everyone in the audience for all of your great questions. We are going to jump right into it and hope that we can get through most of them today. So I'm going to give Dr. Kumar a little break, and I'll start with a question that came in for Marissa that we thought was really thought-provoking. This comes to us from Sanjeev, and she's asking Marissa if she has any tips on how we can achieve that balance on what we need to be financially secure, but also what society expects us to have.
That is such an important question. It's a wonderful question. Thank you for bringing that forward. You know, I think the best way for me to answer that is to probably take a healthy look backwards on the past few months. When I look at what we've endured as people, as a country, as a community, as individuals during this COVID environment, I think for a lot of people, for those who were lucky perhaps, you were able to find the silver linings, find the pieces of our lives and the moments and the things that truly matter. I think that there will never be a perfect balance between what society expects of us and the goals and values that we have with ourselves. But at the end of the day, we wake up with ourselves and go to sleep with ourselves and have to live with ourselves and find comfort and confidence in that. I truly believe, and I know I took so many notes when Dr. Kumar was speaking because there's just so many wonderful things that she shared. But I think a lot of that comes from being comfortable with what you want and not letting society have any bearings or any involvement or influence in terms of what you want. I realize it's hard. It's one of the hardest challenges we face as a society, is really dictating what we want versus keeping up with society's standards, if it be finances or beauty or education or expectation on women or men, gender roles. I mean, the expectations are endless. But I think this is where you have to dig deep and really pull on that resilience and allow ourselves to be vulnerable, because out of that vulnerability also comes that courage to do what's best. And I think this is where, when it comes to financial well-being, is really assessing what's important to you and creating a plan that will allow you to achieve everything that's important to you and not so much of what's important to society.
Thanks, Marissa. That's a great answer. And just to build on that, you said at the beginning, you're not here to give any kind of a corporate commercial, but we did receive a few questions from Sandeep that were along the lines of, working with IG, working with an advisor even. And one of the questions was, how is IG different than a bank? And then, why would I work with IG to create a financial plan? So I'll let you take that one now before I go and ask some questions of Dr. Kumar.
Well, I certainly wasn't here this evening to plug IG, but when I have an opportunity when I'm asked to speak about it, I'm happy to, because it's an organization that I love. The biggest difference, I think, between IG Wealth Management and a bank, and I certainly I've never worked at a bank, but what I can say for IG Wealth is that we are so hyper-focused on planning, on financial planning for our clients. In fact, if you visit our website, ig.ca, you can actually go on there and do what's called a living plan snapshot. Essentially, it's a little quiz or questionnaire that will assess your financial well-being score. It'll explain to you the different metrics that it's measuring and explain to you how you scored on those metrics and perhaps things that you could do to score better. In addition to that, though, because not everybody on this call is in the same financial situation, there are so many resources on the IG.ca website. And beyond that, we have advisors and financial planners coast to coast that exist to plan and do real planning with our clients. So it's not so much about investing advice. It's about planning for life's moments. It's about planning for life's opportunities. And financial planning, I think, is the biggest differentiator between IG Wealth and perhaps a traditional banking institution. Not to say there isn't planning at the banks, but I know specifically for IG, there's a super focus on the planning element and creating holistic, custom plans for our clients.
That's great. Thanks, Marissa. It sounds like it's, to put both of those questions together, it's so important to know what you really want and what's important, and then to go and find an advisor that can partner with you in helping you kind of achieve those goals that you have. So we'll give Marissa a little break right now, and we'll switch back to Dr. Kumar. We are having a lot of questions come in, so I know that was a really inspiring talk, and thank you for that. Anita was, I think, the first one to submit a question, and she was talking about the Black Lives Matter campaign and actually quoted Tracy Washington. So sometimes I wish I could just take you guys off mute in these webinars so that you could ask your question yourself. But the question says, starts by quoting Tracy, who said, "Stop calling me resilient, because every time you say, oh, they're resilient, that means you can do something for me. I am not resilient." So Anita's question is, how do you define resilience within the context of the social judgment movement in 2020?
That's a great question. And I think you can use resilience in many different ways. I mean, you could use it to keep people in their place, saying, you don't need any help, you can bounce back. But that's not the type of resilience I'm talking about. I'm talking about personally, as a woman, as a human being, how do I deal with all that life throws at me? How do I come back and be that kind of person that can be strong and dependable and actually have faith in myself and hope in myself? We can label people with this and then treat them in a different way, but that's not the type of resilience I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about something that comes from deep within us, a holistic way of living and moving through life. So I understand that word can be used in a different connotation. Not sure I answered your question, but that's what I think resilience is.
Thank you so much. And we actually had a follow-up question from Trudy that said, how do you build resilience through self-talk?
Self-talk can be good and bad. It depends on what you're talking to yourself about. If you have positive role models all around you, if you read and if you get involved with support groups or people that know how to support you, you will hear a lot of things said to you that you can say to yourself. But self-determination or determining to be good or determining to be resilient doesn't get you anywhere. You actually have to believe, and you have to understand that I have to be something. I have to transform who I am into something else in order to be resilient. Sometimes we self-talk and we tell ourselves negative things, which is what we most often do. But resilience is something that says, I am not going to be defeated by the circumstances of my life. For me personally, I cannot do this on my own. I have to reach to a power that's higher than me, to a God that I depend upon. And so I suppose it depends upon how deep your belief system is in your own power to do things, or is there something outside of yourself that you can get power to do something different with your life. So I encourage you to learn more about it, read more about it, talk to others about it, and most of all, try to understand yourself. Who are you, and how do you feel about life, and how do you come across both to yourself and to other people?
Thank you. And just to follow on that question, I have one here that came from Shruti, who said, we're trying to build resilience while multitasking between professional and personal lives. And what is your advice for people on when it's time to seek help from others?
I think each one individually would know that, and I don't think there should be a dichotomy between your personal life and your professional life. You should be the same person everywhere. If that's what you strive to be, if you strive to be a person of resilience at home and at work, that's the best thing to be. We cannot divide ourselves up into two different people. We need to be the same everywhere. I remember when my children were little, I asked them, do you think mom is the same person inside the home as she is outside the home? And my daughter's online, she might remember this. And my son said, Mom, you're a dragon lady in the house and you're nice everywhere else. And my daughter said, no, Mom, you're the same everywhere. And it's really important to understand that we are a people that actually are not double-minded, that we don't act differently in different places. Now, when do you know that you need help is when you become overwhelmed and you think, this is something I cannot do by myself. And ask yourself, what in this situation can I control? And do something about that. If there's something you can't control, let the chips fall where they may because you can't control them. And ask yourself, how much time am I spending on things I can't control? Because that's what's overwhelming me.
Wow, thank you. That is,
yeah.
That's great advice. So we have, we're actually overwhelmed with questions, and we are coming near the end of our time on our broadcast together. But I just wanted to answer a few of the common questions that we were getting. So I wanted to let everyone know that a few hours after this broadcast, you will automatically receive an email with a playback link in case you missed anything. And right on the console, we've included a link to some resources that are also on the website. So if you're wanting to find that Living Plan snapshot or any of the books that were mentioned or other links that could be useful resources for you, you can find them there. So I want to thank everyone for submitting your questions and hand it over to our host for a video to help close off our time together tonight. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Marissa and Dr. Kumar, for your insightful answers. Thank you, Leanne, for a superb job of moderating the Q&A session. Thank you, Jessica Wong, our back-end expert who helped in producing the webinar today. Really a wonderful job, ladies. It's been amazing. I would now like to request the wonderful Smita Chandra, the chair of today's women's event, to say a few words in closing.
Hi, my name is Smita Chandra, and I'm the chair of the Women's Event Committee. Thank you so much for attending our webinar today. I hope you found it as interesting, as informative as I did. I would like to thank the wonderful people at IG Wealth Management for their help and support in bringing this webinar to you all. And our deepest gratitude and thanks to Ashima Jain, Leanne Almayer, Marissa Teeter, and their team at IG Wealth Management for all their help and support. A huge thanks to our two amazing speakers today, Marissa Teeter and Margaret Kamalini Kumar. You both were motivating and inspiring, and I, for one, feel empowered. Thank you, Lorraine, for your wonderful rendition of the national anthem. Dr. Sudhi, for your warm welcome and opening remarks. Leanne, for moderating the question and answer session. And a very special thanks to our charming MC, Tina Valia, for hosting the webinar this evening and keeping all of us riveted to our computer screens. None of this would have been possible without the help and support of the Women's Event Committee executive team, and I would like to express my deepest gratitude to Dr. Asha Devanation, LG Varghese, Tina Valia, Ashima Jain, Violetta Ademi, Dr. Sudhi, Sridhar, and Rajiv. Thank you for all the support, the love, the laughter, and all the hard work. Thank you once again, all of you, for attending our webinar. Please visit www.trewo.org to see upcoming programs on our website and resources that may be of help for you. And also please visit ig.ca to see how they can be of help to you. Thank you once again. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Smita, for those kind words. And now, drum roll please, it's raffle time. I can't wait to announce the winners of tonight's web participants who stayed connected right till the end. I hope you enjoyed the webinar. And the 10 winners of the $50 Amazon e-cards are, number 1, Bhargavi Kalakori. I hope I'm pronouncing the names right. Excuse me and pardon me if the names are not pronounced properly. Number 2 is Carla Hunter. Number 3 is Malini Sridhar. Number 4 is Manorama Herman. Number 5 is Marnie Small. Number 6 is Patricia McDougall. Number 7 is Rohini Mensikai. Number 8 is Anita Tang. Number 9 is Tony Operici. And last, but the final 10th winner is Cheryl Leong. Congratulations, and your e-cards will be emailed to the email addresses provided at the time of registration. See you all at the next Ripple Effect Wellness Organization event.